Hello, secondary methods students. This instructional video is for week 2, and I'm going to teach you how to write content objectives no matter what content area you are teaching in. For this assignment, you are going to first choose your group members and your content area. I want you to sign up in that shared doc that is linked in Blackboard in the week 2 folder, and I sent you an email about it last week. The next thing that you're going to need is to print the content and language objectives help sheet. That is also in the week 2 folder in Blackboard. You can do an electronic copy or print the Unpacking the Teaks chart. And you're going to need access to your teaks for your chosen content area. You can either print them, access them online, or use the app, or use a variety of those. And then you need to create a cloud document that you can share with your group. So one of you needs to be group leader, create a cloud document either in Office 365, you guys all have free accounts through WT, or your Google Drive, and share that so that everybody can collaborate in a single document asynchronously. That means not at the same time. You don't all have to be in the same document at the same time. Okay, first I'm going to teach you how to unpack the teaks because they can be kind of cumbersome the first time that you look at them. You are not going to submit this chart. It is just a guide to help your thinking, and you can upload this to the cloud on work on it as a group if you like, but again, it's just to guide your thinking. You don't have to print this off. This will help you break the teaks into manageable chunks, and it's prep work for helping you write a content objective, which you will be submitting this week for your homework. So for my sample today, I'm going to be working with some 7th grade history teaks. And if you guys know your social studies teaks, you know that in 7th grade, it is all about Texas history. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to select one of my knowledge and skills statements. And I'm actually just going to pick the first one here, which is history. I'm going to copy all of number 1, and then I'm going to go into my Unpacking the Teaks document, and I'm going to just paste it under standard. I hit Control V, it'll paste it under there. So this is actually Teak 1, and I do, it's, sorry, 7th grade, point 1, point A through B. Okay, this subject is Social Studies, Texas history. Okay, so just copying and pasting my teak there. And then as I read through this teak, I'm going to look for the verbs that students are expected to do in this teak. And I see right away that on A, my first verb, my first verb is that they have to identify something. So I'm going to type identify in the box here. It says with what knowledge or concept, and if you're my English peeps, that's your nouns or your direct instruction. So it says identify the major eras in Texas history, describe their defining characteristics, and explain the purpose of dividing the past into eras, including natural Texas and its people, age of contact, Spanish colonial, Mexican national, Revolution and Republic, early statehood, Texas in the Civil War and Reconstruction, cotton, cattle, and railroads, age of oil, Texas in the Great Depression, and World War II, civil rights, and contemporary Texas. Oh my goodness, are you overwhelmed? I am overwhelmed. If I asked my students to do this in 7th grade, they would definitely be overwhelmed. So we're going to stop. We're going to slow down. We're going to go back, and we're going to continue to pick out the verbs. So I've got identify. I also noticed that I read describe, and I also have explain. So instead of jumping to the second knowledge and skill statement, I'm sticking with A. Okay, so it says identify, describe, and explain. Okay, those are my 3 verbs that I see in 7.1a. Okay, identify what? Okay, it says the major eras in Texas history. Okay, in what context? So the context that is given, it says that we've got natural Texas and its people. Natural Texas and its people. Okay, that is enough for that. That is one thing. I could write a content objective for that. Okay, I'm going to go the major eras in history. I'm going to bullet point these. Natural Texas and its people. Age of contact. Okay, so I went ahead and filled in the rest of the context. And right away, my brain is going, that is way too much to teach in one class period. That's why we're doing this unpacking the teaks. We're going to figure out real fast what is too much to teach and start working on what is the right amount to teach in a single class period. So the last step says identify the level of thinking. And you can either use Bloom's taxonomy or you can use a depth of knowledge chart. And if you go into Blackboard, and I've got some depth of knowledge charts in the week 2 folder if you need them. You can also use Bloom's, either one works. But if I look at the word identify, I can see that it's on DOK1. It's routine thinking. It's your lowest level of thinking. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type DOK1. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my unpacking the teaks chart, and I realize that is plenty for me to write 5 objectives with. That is plenty of information. Okay. I went ahead and added another example in art so that you can see what it looks like with a different content area. Again, this chart is just to help you kind of get your organized thinking and unpack those teaks so we can split them up into achievable content objectives for a 45-minute class or a set of 45-minute classes. So don't worry about it being perfect. You are not going to submit this. It's just a guide to help your thinking. Once you have unpacked about 3 to 5 teaks in your content area, you're ready to start writing content objectives. And I want you to pull up that content and language objectives help sheet or print it off if you haven't done so already. For my course, we're going to write a simplified version of an objective, and I call it an I can statement. I like these types of objectives because they're easy for your English language learners to understand, and they're easy for your students to understand. The teaks are not written in a language that your students are going to be able to grasp easily. So for this course, when we write lesson plans, we're going to use the I can style of objectives. And if you look down at the bottom of the document, you'll see that I have 6 examples. But these 6 examples are both content and language objectives. We will add language objectives at a later date. For today's homework, I only want you to do content objectives. So I'm going to highlight those for you. I can classify attributes of reptiles, mammals, and amphibians. That would be the content objective for a science class. I can describe a character in a book. That would be the content objective for an English language arts class. I can use first, next, then, and last to retell a fiction story. That would also be English language arts. I can predict how many pattern blocks fill a shape. That is going to be a math statement. I can compare reptiles and mammals. That is going to be a science statement. And I can describe a person. That would be like a LOTE, like your language other than English objective. So as you can see, your I can objectives are very, very simple. I don't want you to overcomplicate them. Don't worry about the things like using adjectives, descriptive adjectives, graphic. Don't worry about any of that stuff yet. Don't worry about anything up in this chart yet. That all has to do with language objectives. So let's go back to that unpacking the TEKS chart I was working with and see if we can write a couple of objectives with that. We had the verb identify, we've got describe, we have explain, all covering the same concepts. I'm not necessarily going to have my students do all of these in a single class period. I'm going to choose one of them. So I'm going to make an I can statement something like this. I can identify when the age of oil was and describe important events in that major era of Texas history. Okay, see how I kind of blended these three pieces of the chart together to make that statement. Okay, that is enough probably for 2 or 3 class periods, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how many important events were in the age of oil. Another one, let's do art. Okay. And I'm going to jump down to this collaborate one, and I'm going to say I can collaborate with a community partner to create a mural on a building on the square. That's a content objective. Not super complicated. Don't overcomplicate them. Don't worry about sounding perfect. The point is to try to break those TEKS down into something you can start building lesson plans from. These are a draft. I expect you to make mistakes on them. I will help you with them. And we will use them later to write lesson plans, but we're likely going to alter them. Okay, so you are going to submit, and you can just type up, you can either submit it like I have it in this document, or you can just type up those 5 content objectives. As a group, you are going to submit those to Blackboard. So if you go into Blackboard under the Week 2 folder, if you have given me the name of your group, you'll be able to see this drop box. If you didn't sign up for a group, you're not going to be able to see this drop box. Simply type your 5 content objectives in there. Only one person from your group needs to submit, and you're good to go. Okay, if you have any questions, shoot me an email.